Hi there and welcome.
You're listening to Animals and Us, Voices of a New Paradigm.
My name is Avantika, and I'm a researcher exploring animal consciousness, environmental sustainability, and planetary health. I want to help bring animal perspectives to the table and transform our relationship with the natural world.
And I'm Barbara. I'm an animal communicator and retired veterinarian. My true passion is exploring the hearts and souls of animals and helping people come to a much deeper understanding of who the animals truly are at their core.
This podcast is for anyone who loves animals and nature and has an interest in their own personal and spiritual development. We'll bring you powerful conversations with fascinating people about animal and nature sentience, consciousness, and communication.
Thank you so much for joining us on this journey of love, respect, understanding, and care for the fellow beings who share our beautiful Mother Earth with us.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Animals and Us, Voices of a New Paradigm. If you tuned into our last episode, you heard from Rebecca Goff, and we dove straight into the amazing healing techniques she has in the waters with the assistance and guidance from the cetaceans. And we talked about how the dolphins and whales give her guidance and instructions on how to do things in the water and how to bring about deep transformation and healing for people. Well, there was so much that we talked about, and we weren't able to include all of it in the last episode, so we decided to create a bonus episode for you here where you can hear a little bit more about the dolphins and whales, the differences between them, how they are energetically and spiritually, and also hear a little bit about Rebecca's experiences working with dolphins in the wild versus dolphins in captivity. There's a lot that we talk about in this bonus episode, and we hope you enjoy.
So we're talking about these animals really tuning into us. And when I was in Tonga with the whales, there was a time, it's making me emotional. There was a time when we were out on the boat and we hadn't been swimming with whales. Normally, I was told you're swimming with whales all the time, but there were 2 weeks when no one was able to swim with whales. People would get in the water and the whales would swim away. And eventually we did. But there was a period of time when I was sensing that the whales were really upset. They were really sad. They were fearful and they were angry. And I called everybody together on the boat and we just sent them healing energy and gratitude for who they are. And it was amazing because within a minute, everybody on the boat came together. We formed a circle and we sent out this prayer to the dolphins, essentially. I mean, to the humpback whales. And right after that, we saw all these humpbacks just breaching, jumping out of the water with exuberance. And I just knew they were expressing their gratitude. I just knew it. So we are so connected. And I don't think the vast majority even realize that. So it seems that it's just what you're saying is it's so important to just pay attention, right?
And what you said, gratitude is huge. I find that the more grateful you are for what comes to you in anything, but with the whales and the dolphins, the more grateful people are for what they get, the more comes. And the people that are like, well, where are they? And I'm here, and they should be here right now. I call it whale waiting, not whale watching. It's whale waiting. And it's every experience is different. There's no guarantees. You don't know what's going to happen when you're out there. It can be completely and totally different. And I've had to argue with my boat captain on a couple of occasions and say, I want to go to this area. And they're like, oh, the whales don't go there. It's like, I want to go to that area. It's like, well, the whales don't get there. It's like, fine, we'll film over there. We go there, the whales are there. So the more you do follow your guidance, the clearer it gets and the stronger it gets.
Yeah. And can you talk about the difference energetically between dolphins and whales?
Well, my go-to is the dolphins are like angels and the whales are like God. And it's just the strength. It's so much greater and bigger. And the whales are, uh, it's like there's a beingness in the whales where the dolphins are more like guides. And I like just being with the dolphins, but with the whales, I sometimes I'm the boat guy. You went with the dolphin or with the whales in Tonga. So you have 4 people with the guide and you get in the water. Well, what we will do sometimes is we'll have 2 guides and we'll go out in the water. I did train as a whale swim guide as Tonga and in Tonga, so I've been completely trained. But we'll go out there with the people and the guide and me, and then I stay with the whales. And I'm the dive flag. And then the guide goes back to the boat, gets another group, comes back out, or they switch off and a different group comes. So I get to be out there by myself. And sometimes I'm swimming with the whales until they settle and then the boats come back. But sometimes they're just there and I just hang out with them until the people come back and then they know where the whales are because they're underneath. The people come back and they'll go, well, did you get a message? And what did they say? What did you do? What was your interaction? And for me, a lot of times I just like to just be and just be with them and feel that amazing peace. And it's, you asked me, I believe, about the interdimensional potential with the whales and the dolphins. And it's like they're in a state of beingness that is right next to non-being. For them to just disappear and reappear, it seems like it would be so easy. There's like a stillness, a still point, like we do when we do our cranial work. Sorry, I'm sure I got off track on that one. I was being with the whales. So what's the difference between the whales and the dolphins? Because the dolphins are smaller, well, they're more playful, but energetically, even the dolphins are very different between them. The dolphins in the spinner dolphins, like we have in Hawaii, they're very group oriented, where the spotted dolphins in the Bahamas are. They'll come up to you more independently and swim right up into your face and like, hi, I'm here. And they're sweet. The ones in the Bahamas are sweet. And not that the others aren't sweet, but I would say peaceful with the Hawaii, with the spinners is more, it's more about peace and joy and, bliss. But there's a sweetness with the Bimini dolphins you just won't find with any other dolphins. And the whales are very different too. The humpbacks, we've talked about that magnetic pulse that the humpbacks put out, the tether. They're the only ones that do that.
Oh.
The gray whales in Mexico, it's a little zit, zit, so they have that electricity, but there's not that zzz that comes out. And the blue whales are just fast. I've never had that kind of experience with them. And I tracked down blue whales because people are asked, are all the whales the same? It's like, well, no, they're not. And some whales, like the melon whales, are more like the bottlenose dolphins in their energy than, say, like a humpback. And then pilot whales will eat people and eat dolphins. And so their energy can be quite aggressive.
Eat people?
Well, if you were little people and you were in the water, I just am sure they would. So I can't really point to that when I should have said that. They're very playful, and I have been in the water with them once, but I usually avoid it, and I'll tell you why. We were in Hawaii with mama humpback and whale had been around, and then some pilot whales came, and it was just us with the pilot whales. We had a very small boat, a little 18-footer, and the pilot whales were jumping beside the boat and having a good time, and the girls were like, let's get off and swim with these. It's like, no, they eat things. They're not vegetarian. They eat small animals, small humpbacks. And people are like, well, they're so playful. It's like, well, they play with their food. They'll toss around a seal or something before they eat. They're really not good. And then we came across that mom with their baby humpback again, and these pilot whales went into full-on hunt mode. And they sonar, and their sonar was the sound, and the sounds they were making was so loud it would pierce through your skin. It hurt. And my husband, God bless him, he was moving that boat, and the mama humpback was putting her baby behind our boat to use the boat to protect her from the pilot whales. And I mean, everybody on the boat was crying. It was very physical. You could hear the sound when they would put out these sound things that they use. It was painful. It was not fun at all. And I don't know how long it went on, but at some point the pilot whales realized my husband was not going to let them get around that boat to the humpback whale and the mom, so they left. So just like that, just like that. I mean, they were just, and that's the thing. People are like, oh, let's go jump in the water with dolphins. It's like dolphins aren't the only things there. Dolphins can be aggressive. It's bottlenose in particular, I've seen be very aggressive with spotted dolphins. And it's interesting because not in the beginning. People didn't swim with bottlenose in the beginning in the Bahamas. And I think I was one of the first ones out there doing that. And then after several years, the bottlenose started picking up really aggressive habits. And so did they get them from us? Did they already have them? Did we bring it out? I don't know. But there was some attacks by bottlenose dolphins on spotted dolphins. And dolphins also can be very sexual. Uh, I get back in the boat. I have other friends that do otherwise. So they can be physical. They can be physical. And if they start getting too physical, then you don't want to be out there. It's like being around a bunch of boys at the playground that start, rough and tumble with each other. Whales are so conscious. They can touch you. They're giant. And I've had them reach out and touch me, and touch is so light. That's where I learned a lot of my touch, and how to lighten up my touch was from the whales touching me. And the touch is so light and so conscious. My husband was on the boat and stuck his arm in the water with the camera and was looking through the camera at the whale. And the whale rolled until she was looking, and her eye was in the camera looking directly at him. And when she did that, she reached up into the boat and touched him. And I had them reach through people and to touch me, and reach past 5 or 6 people to reach out to touch me. And the touch is so delicate. And I've been in competition pods, which is where you have several males and they're slapping their tails and they're banging up against each other. I've been like under me, over me, beside me, everywhere, and they've not touched me. They're so very conscious. Probably the dolphins too, but it's just more. Dolphins will have slid up against me, but come to think of it, even though there's a lot of them, they don't normally just bump into you. But it's so much more obvious with the whales because they're so big. They're very conscious. The whales and dolphins are very conscious of their place in space and where they are in their bodies and what they're touching and what they're not. A lot more so than we are.
Wow. So that actually leads perfectly into the next question I had for you, Rebecca. You're talking about the differences between the different, dolphins amongst themselves have different personalities, and there's different types of dolphins and whales. So you've done a lot of your work in the wild, in the ocean, in the open waters, but you've also spent time with dolphins in captivity as well. And your experiences with them there with dolphins in captivity were quite significant because you said you've seen things there that you have not seen in the wild. Can you tell us more about that?
Sure. And first of all, I'd like to say, no dolphin jails, all dolphins be free. I'm an ambassador for free dolphins, and that's it. We want dolphins free. And the reason that I went and explored, I'd never worked with them in captivity. However, when I first started doing this work, the first people to find us were the parents of the autistic children, because it was a time when they were looking for anything and everything. And even though I've never, ever charged to treat a child, we don't even take donations, because if somebody has $5 to give me today and they don't have it tomorrow, maybe they won't bring the baby back. So I just went, I don't care. We don't fill out forms. I'm just going to treat kids for free and pregnant moms. But still, I live in Hawaii, and it's expensive to get to me, and you have to get housing and all the rest of it. And dolphins don't always show. They're wild. Sometimes they come, sometimes they don't. And in the very beginning of doing this work, I thought, wow, wouldn't it be great if I could have dolphins all the time? And I could have an environment where there's no waves, there's no sharks, and the dolphins just come in and woohoo, let's go. So that is when I went. to several captive dolphin facilities and to look and see what's it look like, what's happening, can we do this, will it work? And I found one, and their claim was the dolphins can leave anytime they want. And the ponds were like honeycombs. So here's a pond, then there's a pond behind it, a pond behind it, a pond behind it, back and back and back. So sure, those very front ponds, the dolphins could leap out and leave, but not the dolphins in the ponds further back. And so I asked the dolphins in the front ponds, it's like, well, do you stay here because you like it? It's like, no. And it's like, well, you could leave. It's like, yes. And it's like, then why don't you? And they said, and leave our brothers and sisters behind. So no, they didn't leave for that. And what I discovered were extremely depressed dolphins, round and round and round in stale water with no life in it. And you've swam with them in the wild now, Avantika. You know what it's like and how far they go and how wide they range. Can you imagine putting them in a 20 by 20 and never being able to go anywhere else? It's obvious they would have depression. And the one dolphin, he was up in the air and he was just rolling his head around and around and going circles and around. And I saw behaviors, autistic behaviors, and depression and deep depression and failure to thrive in the dolphins that were in captivity. The same kinds of things that we create in ourselves in captivity. And so, no, not a good thing to have wild animals not be wild. And that includes us.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
The first time I was ever with dolphins was years ago in a captive situation because I'd heard it so great and I had never been with dolphins. And it was phenomenal. There were 2 adult dolphins, a male and a female, and they were just all over me. They wouldn't even let me get out when it was time to get out, which was quite a little challenge. But I completely fell in love with dolphins. And I thought I would be a dolphin researcher or something. I was already a veterinarian and found out that I get seasick, so that didn't happen. But after that, I swam with dolphins in the wild in Hawaii and in Costa Rica. And several years later, I went back to the same facility where I had started. And I was in the water with 3 or 4 young female dolphins in a pool, like you're talking about. And I was in tears. They were like hanging out right against this mesh fence. And I could tell all they wanted was out, and it was so sad. And I just think it's totally unfair to these animals to have them in essentially what's a cage. It's just awful.
Absolutely. And people have had amazing experiences with dolphins in captivity. There's no doubt about that. And my go-to used to be, well, I'm sure you had amazing conversations with Nelson Mandela when he was in jail, but did we keep him in jail? So whenever we want to have a conversation, he will be there. It's like the freedom is so different in how they communicate. And I had something similar. I went to a hotel for a conference and I walked out to the pool area and did not realize they had captive dolphins. And I walked over to this pool and there was a very young dolphin. And I was like, oh, hi, how you doing? And the dolphin was like, oh my God, you can talk to me. And then it like kept coming over and it kept rolling up and looking at me and it was so sad and all these people and I hated it and didn't want to be there. And my girlfriend from Tonga was with me and I'm crying and saying, I'm so sorry they're doing this to you. I'm so sorry. And I'm eyeballing the ocean over there and the dolphin is like, can I get in and get this dolphin and get it to the water? And my girlfriend knows me well enough to know. She's like, we're going to get arrested. Rebecca's going to grab that dolphin and run to the ocean with it. And I would have. And the only thing that kept me from doing it was I wasn't sure I was strong enough to be able to get it and carry it to the ocean because the ocean was like right over there. I mean, how horrible can that be? But I was afraid it might be too heavy. And if I would drop it, I would hurt it. Otherwise, I would have been in that pool and that dolphin would have been back in the ocean. So yes, definitely it's just not. The only dolphin I've ever seen born in captivity that was happy was a baby dolphin at the Mirage, and it was an underwater pool where you could go and walk in. And that baby, I don't know how many generations had been born in captivity, but it thought it was the greatest thing. It loved it. It went and saw everybody, and it talked and it played and it went around. And the dolphins will be, who they are anyway. And there was one captive place in. What are they? I can't remember the name of it, but it's just north. It's north of Tulum and south, going down into Mexico, just below Carmen de Playa. So if you would go down Miami side, but anyway, big park, and they had all different floating rivers and different things, but they had dolphins that were in captivity, and it was in the marina, but it was still a pen, and they came out and they did the shows, and then they would put them in a back pen, and you could swim across the marina to get to the back pen, and there was like this hole in the fence. So some of us would swim out to the fence, and when the dolphins weren't working, they would come to the hole in the fence and come and play. And bottlenose, and they would open their mouth so you could pet their tongue. They loved to get their tongues petted. And there was this one, and she just loved my husband. She was like, "Oh, I just love this guy." And she kept coming. And my husband, after a while, goes, "I noticed these two other dolphins came and kind of like pushed her away, and then they were like giving me stink eye." And the thing, he goes, and I went, "Oh, you're boys, and she's a girl." So very cute. So even though they were in captivity, they sure knew how to come out and play. Do we have time for a quick story on the boy-girl dolphin thing?
Yeah,
Sure.
Where we swim in the wild, there was my husband. A lot of us go out and swim, and my husband we don't go off of boats. We go from shore, so it's not like what we did at Montica, where everybody kind of stayed together. Everybody just goes where they're going. My husband always goes off and does his thing. And there was this one dolphin, and we called her Quacker because she would talk all the time. She was like quack 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 quack, and you could tell because she had a cookie cutter bite on her. So everybody knew who she was. Everybody knew she was a talker. But when she would see Ty, my husband, she would zip over next to him and be right next. And she'd like, and then she'd swim with him, just be with him the whole time. Then when she was going to leave, she'd like, "I'm going to leave," right? And Ty and I were never together. And one day we're in the ocean, and they'd like to play with leaves. So we did the leaf game a little bit. I think we dropped the leaves and they go chase it. So I was in the water, and I was just doing a little lazy swimming, and I was with this young female dolphin, and we were like swimming in circles, and my husband was in the kayak, and my husband goes, "Oh, she's really relaxed today," and he said something to me, and I said something to her, and she recognized his voice, and she turned and she looked up at him, and then she looked at me like, "Why is he talking to you?" And I took that moment to grab the leaf, right? And then she was like, "Oh, well, I don't want anything to do with you." It was hysterical. I'm like, "Oh, here, you can have your leaf back. I don't want your leaf." "Oh, no, I don't want your leaf," right? So I had to kind of turn around and let her steal the leaf from me. And then she took that leaf and she shot about 5 feet in front of us and dropped the leaf, and then came back and got next to me and like, "We're going to see who's the baddest woman in the sea here. We'll show him who's the best," and race me for the leaf, right? So, I mean, she was very, very possessive of him. And then when she got older and she started being with boy dolphins and she had babies of her own, and she would like still, when she would see times like, "Oh, hi, how you doing? I still love you, but I'm over here doing my thing now." So yes, they definitely have personalities.
That's amazing. Wow. I can't wait, Rebecca, to get back in the water and to learn all about them and to see all of that. It was so much fun in just a short time. So we hope you enjoyed that bonus content, that discussion and conversation we had with Rebecca that we weren't able to include in the last episode with her. And as always, we will finish off this episode with a blessing for the animals.
We'd like to end this podcast by taking just a moment to be quiet. And we give thanks and blessings to these amazing animals that we share our lives with. They give us so much and ask for so little in return. We hope that you can keep the animals and all living beings in your heart and in your mind as you go about your day. Thank you so much for being here with us today.